Okay, now we're going to take about 2 hours for this trip. Now you're quite lucky today because we're going to go up to the 34th floor. Normally we go to the 32nd floor or the 33rd floor. 34 and 33 are both corporate floors, and but the best one to go on is the 34th one, which we've got. And we can be up there for about 45 minutes. It is a bit of a whistle-stop tour because we're going to be looking at fibre, we're going to be looking at switch. Very boring when you see it. I can go into how it works. A lot of guys will know if I say time division multiplex, PCM, pulse code modulation. But if I go into that detail, we're here till 7 tonight. So we won't go into too much detail. But no. But I will accept questions. So the first thing we're going to do now, we're going to go into the cable chamber. Has anyone been in a cable chamber before? Yeah? And that's where all the cables, we're going to start the journey, where all the cables come into the building. So it's a bit of a trek to where we're going now, which is why I'm glad you left your bags. But stay tight because you will lose me. And I get lost every time I go this route, as you'll see when we go. Okay, follow me, guys. Right, okay, what you're looking at now, this is what's known as an MUCJ frame. What we're going to be looking at later on, when we're in the cable chamber, is a thing called the MDF. Now the MDF is the main distribution frame, where all the copper pairs, and I'll explain that more to you, come from your house or from buildings, factories, whatever, and they terminate on a frame. That's your copper pair. What this is, can you see lots of red labels? Right, basically all the cables in between telephone exchanges, because we're going to get from all the different telephone exchanges, used to be copper. But of course, what we've done now, we've replaced all that copper with fibre. So all our telephone exchanges now, it's a matrix of fibre, and we've got that all over the world. Yeah, we have got one of the biggest fibre networks in the world now. And if you can imagine, with fibre, we haven't got to worry about damp, we haven't got to worry about corrosion, and that's all over our exchanges. Now, if you can imagine, those red blocks there are where the pairs have been tapped out. When I say tapped out, check to see if there's anything on them. We still have to keep them because there are quite a few people that still like a copper pair. Have you heard of a private wire? And a lot of people still want that private wire, but they're really dropping. This is the original exchange. So what you've got, the copper pair coming from those cables down below that go all the way to your house. So I will know from records when I say to your house, the people who live around here, because you'll have your own local exchange. So I'll go onto one of those now and I can pick up that copper pair that goes to your house. I then can jumper that, and that's what these things are there. These are jumpers. And all they are 2 wires. So from the 2 wires there, of the internal wire coming in, from those 2 wires coming in from those cables from your house, I can then jump across to the other side to a thing called broadband. So I can jump across the other side to the broadband. And then we've got cables, see all these cables up there? All those cables go up to the different floors that we're going to look at in a second, and that goes to the broadband equipment, yeah? Or it goes to the switch, or it goes to the alarm monitoring system. So it's all different products around the building. We're not going to see all of them today, we're going to see some of them. What you've got now, this is known as the LLU area, local loop unbundling. And what we mean, what a word, unbundling. And what it is, this is where we unbundle the copper pairs. We allow other operators to use our copper pair, but they have to rent it. So if you look at these racks now, you'll notice some of them have got names on like Sky, Cable and Wireless, AOL. And this is their equipment now. And that equipment is connected down with the copper cables, the cream cables, that goes down to that MDF that we've just come from. So they now bring their customers, they're not allowed to go onto that frame, onto these racks. But what a lot of them are worried about is access for the other operators. They get a pass card like that. But they're only allowed a certain route. They're not allowed to go through any areas where BT equipment is. Because you can imagine, we're talking massive amounts of data. We don't want to go near that. So what you've got here now is they've got access to this room, and a lot of them you won't find the names on because they don't want people to know. And they're worried that someone will go, oh, that's a Sky rack. But it doesn't happen. all over the UK, we have no problems of sabotage, anything like that. Okay, just a few facts about the tower. In 1954, the expected growth on the network between London and the rest of the UK, basically the plan was, do we provide cables around London to get to all the buildings that we need to, because the massive growth on trunk traffic. And it was thought, well, no, because you've got to dig all the roads up. It takes time, it takes money. So the next plan was, shall we put towers like this all the way around the outside of London and have them like a matrix of microwave between them? And that was another thing they looked at. And in there they said, no, what we'll go for is the one tower, which is this one. So they built the one tower. And that was so we could take all the trunk traffic on the microwave. And it worked quite well. And a lot of people don't know, but all the towers you got around the UK, one of our first line defence was the microwave. And what it was, we had a microwave that went all the way around the towers and there's a ring around the outside of the UK. Good idea. Any plane that broke that ring, we would know. But you know what? What happens if they go below or above? So good system, but anyway, but that was early warning that they put in. So basically the two routes were considered that I mentioned too. The construction of the tower itself, it's 189 metres high, and it was built under the direction of a guy called Eric Bedford, Chief Architect of the Ministry of Public Buildings. And the Chief Architect was a guy called G.R. Yates. One problem they had was actually building this and getting down to a solid foundation. They had to go down 50 metres to get any foundation, and that was chalk. So they had to find a solution to build this on a raft. And you wouldn't believe it, the only people that came up with the solution were the Italians. And the Italians came up with a solution. So all of this now is on a 27 by 27 square concrete shaft that's a metre thick. But within the actual block itself, it's a mass of steel reinforcement, if you can imagine. So the actual tower does move. What I can't do is take you down below, and we've actually got a pendulum. And you can actually see the pendulum, and it shows you the tower moving. So it moves on the top by 19 centimetres. Now the reason for that, obviously, with microwave, it's point to point. Now, in terms of in winter and summer, it contracts, obviously, yeah? How much shorter do you think it becomes in the winter? You imagine the top of it now, right? And it amazed me, 23 centimetres shorter. And of course they can measure that, 23 centimetres shorter in the winter. And it just amazes you, all this massive concrete, but it does. What you've seen today and what you've been through, you can imagine a lot of people are requesting that within BT itself. So don't go around and please tell people, oh, let's go on that visit, because we can't arrange them that often. This is a one-off. And I'm not joking now, I'm doing one in September for another institute, and that'll be the only one. And the reason is because it's an operational building. And you can imagine, we've got 100,000 people that work for us, they'd be coming here every day. And we just can't afford to do it. So I think you're lucky to have done what we've done today, but you're nice people, and I hope you've enjoyed it. And I'm off now to Keybridge, and I might get home tonight around about 10 o'clock, so another early night for me. Okay, all safe journey everybody. All right, no problem.